Because I was bedridden feeling unwell, I ended up significantly behind on my major house cleaning. While I was busily working, Michael casually went out. When I entered Michael's room, I saw a bag sticking out from the dresser. I picked it up. Inside the bag was an SD card. Seeing it along with a message card that said "For Michael," I had a bad feeling. Just as Michael came back, I waited until he went to take a bath and then went back to his room to check the contents on the computer. What is this? I was speechless at the video I saw. Anger welled up inside me. I'm gonna get a divorce. I decided that and gathered all the relatives at my house the next day. Now, please watch this. As all the relatives and Michael turned towards the TV at my voice, I pressed the play button. The scene that appeared left the relatives speechless, and Michael turned pale. Why is this happening? As Michael looked at me, I smiled sweetly and handed him a green paper. I'll never forgive him, I'll make him regret it. My name is Jennifer Smith. I'm a 34-year-old housewife. My parents passed away early, but thanks to a large inheritance and the kindness of the neighboring family, I was able to become a nursery teacher, a dream of mine. I quit being a nursery teacher when I was 30. That was because I married my childhood friend, Michael. The trigger for our relationship was the accident that took my parents' lives. I was a high school senior at the time and didn't want to move because I was about to take university entrance exams. I absolutely wanted to attend the university my parents had been supporting. However, my relatives wanted to take me in because of the large inheritance left by my parents. Most of them were strangers to me, and their approach only felt creepy. Michael, who lived next door and was like an older brother to me, drove away the relatives who swarmed around me, wounded by the sudden loss of my parents. Michael was the eldest son of the family next door, 3 years older than me. In front of the relatives, Michael boldly declared, "We'll take care of her. My parents have already given permission, so no complaints. Jennifer is gonna be my wife in the future." I was surprised by the words of Michael, who had always been like a brother to me, but it seemed he was serious, and later he confessed his feelings to me. His earnest character, which I had known since childhood, and the sense of security he provided in times of need became a refuge for me, who had become alone, and we started dating. Michael always prioritized me, and eventually, I truly fell in love with him. Then, when I became accustomed to my job as a nursery teacher, he proposed to me. What I said when we were students was serious. My feelings haven't changed. I will definitely make you happy, marry me. Absolutely. Moved to tears, I accepted his proposal. When we told his parents, they were overjoyed and threw a celebration that night. After getting married, about 2 years passed, and I quit my job to become a full-time homemaker. Michael, my husband, had asked me to focus on being a homemaker, which was bittersweet for me since I had to give up my dream job as a preschool teacher. However, I decided to look forward to raising my own children and using my experience in parenting. Michael has a younger sister, Sarah, who was in the same class as me. We attended the same schools since kindergarten and even worked together at the same preschool. Sarah had mixed feelings about me marrying Michael. It was because she didn't get along well with him. Michael's always been nice only to you, Jennifer. He's always unreasonable with me. Do you think so? I'm sure of it. Sarah was quite adamant about her views, so I often just listened without arguing. According to her, she was happy to have me in the family. But she didn't like the fact that I was Michael's wife. She often pretended to lament, saying how difficult it was that her best friend had married her not-so-favorite brother. From my perspective, Michael might have been a bit indifferent to Sarah, but I still thought they shared a typical sibling bond. However, Sarah didn't seem to think so and would make a sour face whenever I mentioned it. Jennifer, you can say that because you don't really know my brother's true nature. Do you really think so? I half listened to her, thinking she was just being a typical sister. In hindsight, I regret not paying more attention to her words. 5 years into our marriage, we still didn't have any children. That's when Michael's attitude started to change. Initially, he complained about our household chores not being evenly split, even though we had always shared them equally. Soon, I was doing almost all the housework. With no kids around and you just lounging at home all day, you could at least do a bit more, right? Michael said, words I never imagined he would say. These hurtful comments pained me, but I accepted them, thinking it was my duty as a homemaker. From there, Michael began to frequently use the excuse "you're a homemaker" to push all household responsibilities onto me. One day, while having tea at my in-laws, Michael suddenly started belittling me, laughing. Her cooking is terrible, and her cleaning is just as sloppy. Can't she do something about it? The living room went silent, but Michael seemed oblivious. and continued to mock me. Her laundry skills are mediocre, too. For a homemaker, she hardly does any work. I could tell Sarah was getting irritated next to me. And even though my mother-in-law was smiling, her eyes weren't. Realizing the situation was getting out of hand, I spoke up. I tend to be absent-minded, so maybe Michael feels unsatisfied with the little things. But still, there's a way to say things, you know. Sarah glared at Michael. Michael glared back at Sarah, and the atmosphere in the living room turned tense. Then, the father-in-law began to speak quietly. A husband should help out where his wife falls short. Besides, Jennifer always helps us out a lot, and we're grateful for that. Michael, though visibly unsatisfied, kept silent in response to his father-in-law's words. Sarah was still upset, but the mother-in-law managed to calm her down. The air was still heavy due to Michael's words. I clapped my hands and forced a smile to change the mood. Hey! I made a cake, anyone want to share it? Jennifer's cakes are delicious. I'm in! I was relieved to see Sarah's mood improve. Then, the mother-in-law, Sarah, and I moved to the kitchen. Sorry about earlier, it's our fault. We know how hard Jennifer works, so try not to overdo it, okay? Thanks. Her kind words almost brought me to tears. Back in the living room, Michael was sitting turned away, looking even more upset than before. I brought the cake. Don't want it. But this is your favorite, pumpkin cake. I said I don't want it. As Michael yelled, the plate with the cake vanished from my hands. Looking down, I saw the smashed cake sticking to the floor. Michael! Apologize to Jennifer. It's her fault for pushing it on me. Michael, with a guilty face, still refused to apologize. I felt a bit sad, remembering how he used to apologize easily. That's awful. Jennifer, why don't you divorce this guy? What? Don't be ridiculous. It's not your decision. Sarah and Michael, now arguing like siblings, continued to heat up the argument. A woman without charm won't get married. When I get married is none of your business. I desperately tried to calm down the shouting Sarah. Michael, watching us, laughed in disbelief and then left, saying he was going out for a drink. Michael's been going out a lot lately. Yeah, he doesn't tell me where he's going. I see. I'll try to find out, don't worry too much. I thanked my kind mother-in-law. My in-laws have always treated me like their own daughter. They scold me when I make a mistake, just like a second set of parents. The relationship with my in-laws was one of the reasons I married Michael. The thought of becoming family with my beloved in-laws and Sarah made me happy. But it's true, I still love Michael. However, since then, Michael's behavior towards me has become increasingly harsh. I'm going out. Again? Where do you keep going every weekend? Anywhere's fine. After a while, Michael started going out somewhere every weekend. Sometimes he would stay overnight, but stubbornly refused to tell me where he was going. He even got irritated every time, and gradually we talked less and less. I wondered if I had done something wrong and asked him. But I never got a satisfactory answer. As New Year's approached, I fell ill. My mother-in-law came over to help. It took about a week to fully recover, but the big cleaning was delayed, and I had to start it bit by bit without any help from Michael. Dragging my weary body, I cleaned. The big cleaning was greatly delayed because I had been bedridden. While I was busy, Michael casually went out. In Michael's room, I noticed a bag sticking out of the dresser. I picked it up. Inside was an SD card. Seeing it packed with a card saying "For Michael," I had a bad feeling. Just as Michael returned, I waited until he was in the bath, then went back to his room and checked the contents on the computer. What is this? I was speechless at the video. Anger welled up inside me. Let's get a divorce. Deciding this, I gathered all our relatives at the house the next day. Please watch this. As all the relatives and Michael turned to the TV, I pressed play. Everyone was speechless at the scene, and Michael turned pale. Why? Michael looked at me, and I smiled, handing him the divorce papers. Unforgivable, I'll make him regret it. Michael, seeing the papers, turned even paler. Wait! Divorce is too sudden. What are you saying? After seeing that video, what else but divorce? At my words, Michael fell silent. The SD card contained footage of a childbirth. Of course, it wasn't mine. It showed a young woman desperately giving birth. At first, I wondered why such a thing existed, but then I saw the man standing beside the woman and understood. It was unmistakably Michael, stroking the woman's head and encouraging her to hang in there. I couldn't mistake Michael's voice, with whom I've been since childhood. This is... I was just standing in for someone. Don't bother with such pathetic lies. I turned up the volume on the TV. The conversation between the woman and Michael echoed in the living room. Emily. It's almost time. Our baby is about to be born. Michael. Yes, I'm trying my best. After their conversation, the sound of a baby crying could be heard. Then, Michael kissed the woman he called Emily, thanking her repeatedly. You did great. You were amazing. I did it all for you, my love. I love you too. Oh, Emily. I can't wait to live with you and our child. Me too. After saying this and kissing her again, the video stopped. The relatives in the living room were stunned, and both the in-laws and Sarah were shaking with anger. Looking at this, no one's going to believe you were just standing in for someone. I just got carried away. It was just an act of being a father. In response to Michael's poor excuses, the father-in-law approached him and, in the next moment, struck him. Michael held his struck cheek, standing dumbfounded. The father-in-law was a very calm person who, although he could get angry when something bad was done, had never resorted to physical action. So, this reaction surprised everyone. Do you even understand what you're saying? Don't you feel any remorse towards Jennifer? But this is. Michael was still desperately trying to explain. Sarah, with a calm voice, said to him, I've always disliked you, but I thought I'd keep up the relationship if you cared for my best friend. But I can't consider someone who hurts my dear friend as family. We're done. At Sarah's words, Michael's face turned red as he yelled. You're younger than me and too cheeky. Fine, cut ties. I'll be relieved. Then, I'll cut ties too. Michael froze at the smiling mother-in-law's words. He was quite the mama's boy, although he tried to hide it. I loved the mother-in-law too, so it didn't bother me much, but honestly, seeing Michael, almost 40, still clinging to his mother, wasn't very appealing. Michael seemed puzzled by the mother-in-law's declaration of cutting ties. I'm the eldest son, right? Mom, you're joking about cutting ties, aren't you? Do you think I'm someone who would joke in this situation? No. The mother-in-law kept smiling, which somehow made it scarier. The whispering relatives began to sit up straight and listen quietly to her. She continued in a calm, slow voice. We don't need to worry about an heir. Jennifer is here. If Jennifer remarries a wonderful man and has children, they will be our heirs. What? If we divorce, she's a stranger. At Michael's response, not only the mother-in-law but also I, the father-in-law, and Sarah sighed deeply. In fact, after getting married, I had been formally adopted by the in-laws. It wasn't necessary, but many relatives had been pressuring me to do so for inheritance reasons. The inheritance from us should be yours to use as you like. But to protect you from such relatives, why don't we consider adoption? After my parents passed away, the in-laws never asked me for money. I arranged for tuition and living expenses from the inheritance and gave it to the in-laws. But they didn't touch it and returned it to me, adding a congratulatory gift when I got a job, saying it was important money. I initially refused, but they insisted, so I gratefully accepted it. Because of this background, I trusted the mother-in-law's words. Therefore, I discussed it with Michael and we proceeded with the adoption right after marriage. It seemed Michael had completely forgotten about it. No, but even if you did adopt, I'm the eldest son and the real child. That's it. I have a child. So, I'm the heir. Michael, as if he had remembered something great, was met with laughter from the mother-in-law. What are you talking about? As of today, you are no longer my child. Well, legally you'll be my child, but you'll relinquish your inheritance. Michael was speechless at her firm words. He shed large tears from the rejection of his beloved mother-in-law. I added insult to injury. By the way, do you know why I called everyone here today? Michael looked at me with a puzzled face, his face dirty with tears. I felt a bit pathetic. Having loved such a pitiable man. We usually had our New Year's greetings at the in-laws' house. They were the landowners of this area, and many relatives lived nearby. There was no other place that could accommodate the big family of 50 members. However, this time, we limited the number of people and asked families with children to attend at their relatives' houses. So, there were only about 20 people in the living room, half the usual number. Michael seemed not to have noticed this. After I pointed it out, he looked around and finally realized. No children? But I hear crying. Are they in another room? Actually, we have a guest today. Please, come in. At my words, Sarah stood up and opened the sliding door at the back. There stood Emily, smugly, with a baby in her arms. Emily, holding the baby proudly, looked as if she felt welcomed as a matter of course. Nice to meet you. My name is Emily. This is Kai, my son with Michael, the fruit of our love. She said this energetically. Emily's attitude changed completely when she responded bluntly to the mother-in-law, who frowned at her. Even though it was through the door, she must have heard the earlier conversation. But then, I noticed the earphones in Emily's hands. Were you listening to music in the next room? Yeah, I was bored. Contrary to her demeanor towards the mother-in-law, she responded to me brusquely. Her attitude was as if she was already the legitimate wife, which irritated me, but then I realized that indeed, she would be the legitimate wife soon. Do you understand why you were called here today? We're getting divorced, right? So I'll be the new wife of this house. With Kai here, the air is secure. It's a celebration, right? I couldn't help but sigh at her blissful ignorance. In this tense atmosphere, thinking it's a celebration, how could she be so oblivious to the mood? Michael was initially stunned by the suddenness of it all, but seeing Emily's complete lack of awareness, he seemed to come back to his senses. Emily, this is a difficult discussion we're having right now. I'll contact you later. I can't wait anymore. Just sign the divorce papers now. Emily said this as she handed a pen to Michael. Then she turned to me with a smug smile. Jennifer, was it? Thank you for your services until today. From now on, I will be the one receiving lots of love from Michael. Even when she said this with such a smug attitude, I could only find it distasteful. After seeing that video of the childbirth, any love I had for Michael had cooled. Even if asked, I wouldn't want Michael's love anymore. But to Emily, it seemed as though I was upset. I'm sorry, but Michael prefers me. He says my skin is firmer and prettier, and I'm more comfortable to hold. He said his wife was like a chicken bone. Emily laughed scornfully, and a flustered Michael tried to intervene. The looks from everyone around were cold as they watched the two of them. I smiled back at Emily and decided to respond to her comment. No, thank you for being there. I don't need him anymore, so please, take him. Emily's eyebrows twitched at my words. She seemed to want to say something, but I ignored her and continued. Well, you're getting a man who's about to be cut off from his family, lose his house, his job, and become penniless. But if you're okay with that. Emily looked shocked. Emily probably thought that once Michael and I divorced, I would leave this house and she would take my place. As I thought about this, I continued to smile at Emily. Michael, wait. It's that wife who's leaving, right? Because this is your house, right? I'm going to be the lady of this house, right? You said I could be a housewife, right? Emily confronted Michael. Michael awkwardly averted his gaze from Emily. Michael, look at me. What are we going to do? I quit my job, you know. You said I could leave Kai with your parents and indulge in luxury. Emily began to lose control and started to pull at her hair. The sound of Emily's screaming startled Kai, and he too began to cry, filling the living room with his cries. I reluctantly took Kai from Emily and held him. He was a cute baby, probably around 4 months old, just able to hold up his head. As I gently rocked him, he calmed down and fell asleep again. But then I realized Emily was glaring at me. Give him back. He's my and Michael's child, the heir to this house. Please keep your voice down, he's just fallen asleep. As I was speaking, Emily snatched Kai back from me and returned him to the baby carrier. He woke up for a moment but fell asleep again as Emily rocked him. I looked at Emily, relieved. Emily glared at me sharply, as if I were her mortal enemy. Even if you take Kai, it won't work out for you. A woman who can't get pregnant should leave this house. Emily's words made me realize that Michael hadn't told her about our situation. It was about why I quit my job as a nursery teacher. Emily, didn't Michael tell you why we don't have children? I don't know. Because you're not loved, right? Emily said this smugly, as if to suggest she was superior to me as a woman. But that didn't matter to me. Behind Emily, Michael's face turned pale, but I ignored him and revealed the truth. Michael naturally has difficulty fathering children. Emily froze, her previous confidence shattered. The relatives around us were also stunned, mouths agape. In fact, the reason I quit my job was due to a miscarriage. I desperately wanted a child and went for a checkup for the first time. Michael was tested too. His results showed that I had no issues, but Michael naturally had difficulty fathering children. It wasn't impossible, but it was highly unlikely to happen naturally. The recent pregnancy was indeed a miracle, but it ended in miscarriage due to genetic issues. Despite the sadness, I strongly wanted to give birth next time. And Michael felt the same. We decided to start fertility treatments. Fortunately, there was still plenty of inheritance left, so I resigned at Michael's suggestion, who was concerned about my health. However, the treatments were unsuccessful, and we were considering adoption when Michael became less interested in the idea. Looking back, he probably started his affair during our fertility treatments, and Emily's pregnancy was discovered around the time we were discussing adoption. Hearing this, Emily looked at Michael, her face turning pale. So, Emily, is Kai really Michael's child?
The possibility isn't zero, right? It's our love.
Even now, she was talking about love in such abstract terms, which was just absurd. I smiled sweetly and added the final blow. That's why I said it. The chance of a natural pregnancy is virtually zero.
But.
Emily was scrambling for excuses, her eyes darting around. Sarah stepped in to cut off her escape.
Stop lying, you're my friend's wife, right?
What? Michael's eyes widened as he looked at Sarah. Sarah exchanged a glance with me and nodded, then showed Emily the screen of her smartphone. It displayed a photo of Emily, Kai, an unknown man, and a 4-year-old girl. I had contacted Sarah immediately after watching the video the day before. Recognizing Emily's face from her phone, Sarah checked the SNS page of a male acquaintance and realized Emily was his wife. I recognized her from the name and face. We worked at the same part-time job, and I often heard stories about her. Are you married? Michael asked. Emily didn't respond, but her expression confirmed the truth of Sarah's words. She had a shotgun wedding, right? And I haven't heard any talk of divorce. According to this photo, Kai is written to be that guy's child. Oh, no. True love, huh? Pretending your husband's child is someone else's to switch to a richer guy. Is it the money you love? Sarah looked down at Emily with complete contempt. Emily, red-faced and trembling, remained silent, unable to respond. By the way, we've called him over. He should be here soon.
No, please. It was just a moment of weakness. Please don't tell my husband.
It's too late for that. As Sarah spoke, the doorbell rang, and Emily collapsed in despair. A relative opened the door, and Emily's husband entered. He immediately started yelling upon seeing Emily.
You cheated on me? What were you thinking? It's not like that. It's a misunderstanding. I heard everything on the phone.
Realizing she had no way out, Emily froze, tears streaming down her face. Her husband took Kai from her and stood up. Then began to apologize to us. My wife has caused a great deal of trouble. We are getting a divorce. Please feel free to claim compensation from her. I will also be filing a claim.
Compensation? Wait, I don't want a divorce.
Emily's refusal to divorce was met with a disenchanted look from her husband.
3 years ago, when your affair came to light, you said you'd stop, right? But you continued the relationship. I will raise the child. I have no intention of letting you see him again.
We were all shocked by Emily's husband's revelation. It was surprising that she had continued the affair secretly even after being caught once. To think it was just a momentary lapse of judgment, such an excuse is hard to believe. 3 years ago, huh? No, Jennifer, it's not what you think. What's different about going out and marking your territory elsewhere? My words made Michael twitch. I'm not usually one to get angry. Sarah once told me that while I'm rarely angry, it's scary when I am. Michael seemed surprised by my attitude, as I had rarely been angry with him. I'm disappointed. I never knew you had been betraying your family for so long. I always tried to reconcile you with Sarah, but it seems I was the one who was blind. Sarah nodded as if she finally understood. Michael was stunned by my direct words. I'll also be filing for compensation. And of course, child support. I touched my stomach. I was actually pregnant. I had kept it a secret from everyone except Sarah, intending to announce it during the New Year's greeting. I had been feeling unwell a while back, which turned out to be morning sickness. I had recently been told by the doctor that I was in a stable phase of pregnancy and had planned to surprise Michael and his parents. The artificial insemination worked. It's truly your child. I kept quiet because I didn't want to get your hopes up and then disappoint you. So, that's... Michael collapsed, utterly defeated. Emily, too, seemed to have no energy left to argue, overwhelmed by her impending divorce and my pregnancy. Then, please fill out the divorce papers. I handed a pen to Michael and left the house with Sarah. By now, Michael would be writing the divorce papers under the stern gaze of his parents-in-law. Feeling relieved that I had said everything I needed to, I enjoyed a leisurely tea time with Sarah. Later, Michael and I finalized our divorce. Michael, who was working at a family-owned company, got fired due to this scandal, literally leaving him penniless and kicked out of the house. Emily, now divorced, tried to extract money from Michael. However, seeing his impoverished state in a shabby apartment from his newly found part-time job, she quickly disappeared. Eventually, to pay for alimony and child support, Emily worked at a seedy bar, where she got involved with troublesome customers and rumors have it that she was taken somewhere. I learned about this because Sarah, laughing about the fleeting nature of true love, informed me. She got the information from Emily's ex-husband, who is her friend. Recently, Sarah has been hanging out more with her friend and their kids, and the story came up in their conversations. This friend was someone Sarah had a crush on during their student days. He apparently had feelings for her too, but since Emily, his then-girlfriend, got pregnant, he married her out of responsibility. Sarah denies it, but her blushing face suggests that maybe a new romance is blossoming for her. After Michael left, my in-laws were initially downcast, but they perked up amidst the bustle of my pregnancy preparations. Now, they dote on their grandchild and have become wonderful grandparents. Initially, they were hesitant, not wanting to impose on me, but gradually, they started treating me like a real daughter again. Living together after the birth, our relationship has become so close that even Sarah jokes about not knowing who the real daughter is. As for me, I safely gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. We hope she grows up bright and cheerful. I hope my daughter grows up to be as bright and cheerful as Sarah, who is not only my best friend but now also like a sister to me. She is someone I truly admire. Jennifer. She won't stop crying. Okay, I'm coming. I hear my daughter's cries and Sarah's troubled voice from the living room. Laughing, I respond and leave the balcony. Outside, the sky is clear and cloudless. I feel a bright future awaits us. Under this vast blue sky.